Greetings and welcome to my next Pilgrim of the Path podcast episode. And my name is Thomas. I do sound therapy. And today I would like to share something with you, seeing that we're coming up with the Winter Solstice here in the southern hemisphere. I will be talking about the Winter Solstice as I'm living in the southern hemisphere. But you know what? Even though you might not live in the southern hemisphere, there will be something for you to think about. So stay tuned. Anyway, so okay, the world tells us, to grow, you need to learn more, you need to study more, you need to do more, have to achieve more and more and more and more and more, right? But now, as we are moving into the solstice, nature whispers a little bit of a different truth. And because before every season of new life comes a season of deeper seeing. Before every spring, there's a winter. Before anything can bloom, something must first become quiet, so it prepares, right? Now, as we are arriving or as we are moving towards the winter solstice, as I said here in the southern hemisphere, which is the longest night of the year, uh, this event is being celebrated by traditions all over the world. And for centuries, different cultures around the world have recognized this turning point not just as an astronomical event, but as a sacred time of pausing, being still and reflect, and to turn inwards. And this is a reminder that growth does not always happen in the light. Sometimes our deepest transformation begins in stillness. Sometimes we have that breakdown before we have the breakthrough. But interestingly enough, this invitation is echoed across several spiritual traditions. Buddhists have recently concluded a sacred time of the Saga Dawa, um, which is commemorating the birth, awakening, and passing of Buddha. So it was a very, very auspicious time for them, and just before the solstice. Um, so this time also for them, it's about cultivating wisdom, compassion, merit, and conscious action. And around the same time, the Vedic tradition enters a period called Dakshinayana, which is the sun's southern journey. And it's a season traditionally devoted to contemplation, spiritual practice, discipline, and inner growth rather than the pursuit of outward achievement. And I do mention the word discipline here because, yes, it does take discipline to be able to say enough is enough, or not that aggressive, but to take time to reflect and to become still. It becomes a conscious decision, and that you can see as discipline. So, although these traditions arise from very different cultures, different languages, different places on the earth, they all seem to say the same thing or whisper the same invitation, which is to pause, to look inward, and to choose consciously how you will walk the next part of your journey, of your chapter, of your life. So over the past week, I found myself sitting with these traditions, and as I said, although they speak different languages, they all seem to point towards the same question, and not about what should I do next, but rather from what state of mind and heart will I take my next step? What are my intentions? What are my intentions? What seeds am I sowing? And as I reflected on this, my thoughts naturally turned to the Lojong teachings on compassion. And because we are busy with this in my membership, so it was natural that I was thinking about that with this letter or with this episode. So, and one of the beautiful teachings of the Lojong teachings is to become aware of how quickly the mind creates stories or how we perceive things. Because we rarely experience life exactly as it is. Instead, we experience our interpretations and the labels our mind places. Um, how we have labels in our life, and then we project that onto people, circumstances, and experiences because of our programming and all our beliefs, that's stories. So, for example, I'm in a difficult conversation, we can label as a rejection or a challenge that can become failure, a mistake that can say, okay, I'm not enough, there's the proof. Or winter, we can see, or we can say, oh, it's just lifeless, it's dead. Well, if you look at winter, but look at nature, you can see it's a cold earth, yes, and plants may look not as happy or alive as in springtime, but beneath the earth, the roots are still growing. And interestingly enough, here in South Africa, we've got plants such as proteas or aloes. They bloom in winter, not in summer. And I find that's just so beautiful to see that, some people see as the winter as being gray and dark and cold, but yet here we have these beautiful plants blooming. So, but still, the roots of the plants are still underneath this cold earth. And so, in that way, um, you can say, okay, how true is that in my life? But what if you feel like the winter, the plants dead and gray and dark? What if that is just a season of preparing you for what's coming? Like uncertainty might be a preparation for what's coming, or loss can maybe be the reason for making space for something new to step in your life. And what if darkness can simply be an invitation for us to see things differently? Um, if we don't have dark, we can't see the light. So sometimes it's only when the outer world becomes quieter that we begin to notice what has been really growing underneath all along. So the invitation then is not to reject the stories of our mind, but to start being curious about it, start to examine them, hold them in a different light, different perspective, to ask whether they are the only way of seeing. Maybe there's a different way of looking at things. Ask yourself, what is happening to me? What story am I telling about what is happening. And and then that single question can actually soften fear and open compassion and create space for discernment and wisdom, which is needed. Because, so as the longest night settle over us for this winter solstice, here we have this beautiful opportunity of looking at things differently. And not about escaping the darkness and not about rushing towards the light, but just to sit quietly enough and to observe our own minds. Because the way we perceive things, it shape our thoughts. And our thoughts influence our intentions, it influences our actions, and our actions influence our relationship with life. And our intentions guide our choices. So, and then over time, the choices become the life we create for ourselves. So, with this solstice, it's not asking us to become someone new, it's just simply inviting us to see a little bit more clearly. And perhaps wisdom is not about seeing more, but seeing clearly what is right in front of us in the present moment. So may this weekend, this solstice, offer you moments of stillness, may it deepen your compassion, and may it bring clarity to the stories your mind creates. And may it remind you that beneath every winter, life is already preparing to bloom again. And until next time, take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, be kind to everybody around you, and may our paths be inspired by that light, by that wisdom, integrity, and ultimate truth. Namaste.